A 29-year-old woman enters Judge Caprio's courtroom with her guide dog by her side. She is facing 6 parking violations, all issued within a single week at different locations across Providence. Judge Frank Caprio looks at the case file with confusion. 6 parking tickets in 7 days. That's not common, but when he looks up and sees the guide dog, the white cane, and the way she carefully navigates the room, his confusion deepens. How could a blind person receive 6 parking tickets? Emily Parker does not drive. She has never driven. She does not own a car. Yet police officers claim they witnessed her exiting vehicles that were parked illegally. Each citation suggests she was responsible for the violation. What Judge Caprio uncovers next not only clears Emily of every ticket, but also reveals a broader issue involving assumptions, misconceptions, and how the independence of people with disabilities can be misunderstood. Some individuals would rather assume a blind woman is pretending than accept that she can live independently and capable. If you're watching, make sure to subscribe to Judge Stories. A large percentage of viewers watch without subscribing, and this case demonstrates why these stories matter. 6 parking tickets in 1 week prejudice can appear in places where we least expect it. This is the story of how one woman's effort for fairness led to policy changes in her city. By the end of this video, you'll understand how Emily Parker and her guide dog, Leo, became representatives of a larger issue, and why Judge Caprio's decision in this case became one of his most meaningful rulings. The question is simple. What happens when someone's independence makes others so uneasy that they start doubting her truth? Emily Parker is about to answer that Tuesday, 10:30 a.m., Providence Municipal Court. The bailiff calls the case Emily Parker, 6 parking violations, multiple locations. Emily enters with her guide dog, a golden retriever in a service vest. Leo walks steadily beside her, while she uses her white cane to guide her path. She appears composed, confident, and well accustomed to navigating daily life with visual impairment. Judge Caprio stands as she approaches out of courtesy. "Judge, good morning, Miss Parker." "Allow me to guide you to the podium, Emily." "Thank you, Your Honor, but I'm all right." Leo and I familiarize ourselves with courthouse layouts before coming. Her tone is calm and certain. She arrives at the podium without hesitation. Leo seated quietly at her side. Judge Caprio looks impressed, but also genuinely confused. "Judge, Miss Parker, I must say I'm unsure about this case even before we begin. You received 6 parking violations across the city within 1 week. Yet I clearly see you have a guide dog, and the documentation confirms you are legally blind. Can you explain how this happened?" Emily exhales. It's clear she has explained this many times before, though it still troubles her. Emily: "Your Honor, I don't drive. I have never driven. I do not own a car. Each citation was issued to me personally, not to any vehicle, because some parking officers assumed I was the driver." Judge Caprio leans in. "Judge, I'm sorry they made that assumption. Can you clarify further?" Emily: "I rely on rideshare services, Uber, Lyft, to get to work, appointments, or anywhere I need to go. At times, drivers stop in areas where parking isn't permitted, even if only for a moment while I exit with Leo. When parking officers see me getting out of a car with my cane and guide dog, some refuse to believe that I am visually impaired. The courtroom becomes completely quiet. This was not the explanation anyone anticipated." Judge: "Miss Parker, just to be clear, parking enforcement officers saw you leave these vehicles and still assumed that you were the one driving?" Emily: "Yes, Your Honor. Even with Leo and my cane present." Emily explains. Rideshare passenger. Despite using a cane and clearly being a passenger, officers assumed I was pretending to have a disability to avoid a ticket. They issued the citations to me instead of the rideshare drivers. Judge Caprio's expression reflects both disbelief and controlled frustration. Judge Caprio: "Let me make sure I understand. You exit a rideshare car. Officers see you with a guide dog and a white cane, and their conclusion is that you were pretending to be visually impaired." Emily: "Yes, Your Honor. This happened several times, 6 times within 1 week." Judge Caprio: "Miss Parker, what is your profession?" Emily: "I'm a graphic designer, Your Honor. I use adaptive tools, screen readers, tactile interfaces, and I work remotely for a design firm in Boston." Judge Caprio takes a moment to process this. A visually impaired graphic designer using specialized technology to perform work that many sighted people would find demanding. This is someone highly capable and independent, yet that very independence is what led to misunderstandings. Subscribe to Judge Stories if you believe disability does not limit talent or value. Judge Caprio reviews the citations on his monitor. Judge Caprio, Miss Parker. Let's address these one at a time. The first citation was issued Monday, March 15th at 8:47 a.m. on Westminster Street. What occurred that morning? Emily responds. Officers didn't believe she was blind. She refers to notes written in Braille on a small device. That was my commute to a client meeting downtown. My Uber driver dropped me in front of the building. The drop-off took maybe 30 seconds. While I was organizing Leo in my bag, a parking officer approached and asked for my license. Your driver's license? Yes, Your Honor. I explained that I don't drive, that I was a passenger in a rideshare. He looked at me, then at Leo, and said something like, You got out of the driver's seat, which I did not. I came from the back seat. Did you clarify that? I did, Your Honor. I told him I am blind, that I rely on rideshares, and the driver had already left. He said, and I quote, You don't look blind. You're looking right at me. Judge Caprio's expression tightens. He said, You don't look blind? Yes, Your Honor. It's something I hear more than most would expect. Because I have some light perception and I face voices when I speak, people assume I can see. They don't understand that legal blindness exists on a spectrum. Judge Caprio writes several notes. And he still issued the citation? Yes, Your Honor. He issued it directly to me, not to the vehicle or the driver. When I tried to explain again, he told me that if I wanted to dispute it, I could come to court. All right, let's look at the second citation. March 16th, Hope Street, 3:15 p.m. That was a doctor's appointment. Different driver, same situation. I exited the back seat with Leo. A parking officer was already walking toward me. This time she was polite, but she still questioned me. She asked how I could be blind if I move around confidently, as if mobility training and guide dogs don't exist. Judge Caprio reviews the written officer notes. The officer wrote, Subject claims visual impairment, but demonstrated full awareness of surroundings and made direct eye contact. Miss Parker, this officer essentially used your independence as evidence against your disability. Yes, Your Honor. Because I function independently, I'm treated as suspicious. It's a bias disabled people face often. If we are too capable, people assume we're pretending. If we need more assistance, people assume we're helpless. There is no acceptable balance. Judge Caprio continues through the citations. Each one shows the same pattern. Emily exits a rideshare vehicle. An officer sees her with Leo and her cane. Instead of recognizing assistive tools, they treat them as signs of deception. Instead of confirming anything with the driver, they cite her directly. By the sixth citation issued that same Friday, Judge Caprio is visibly troubled. Ms. Parker, this last citation includes a note from the officer stating, Subject too well dressed and articulate to be, too capable to be disabled, actually blind. He stated in writing that your appearance and communication skills suggested you were not being truthful about your disability. Emily speaks steadily, though her voice holds a quiet strain beneath. Your Honor, I have spent my entire adult life learning how to live independently. I learned to use technology that enables me to work. I trained with Leo for months. I memorized routes and landmarks. I do not allow my visual impairment to define what I can achieve. And now that very independence is being used as a basis to question my disability. It feels like success is being penalized. Judge Caprio leans back, clearly considering her words. Miss Parker, I need to confirm something. Have you filed complaints regarding these citations before today? Yes, Your Honor. I contacted parking enforcement after receiving the third ticket. I explained my situation. I was advised to challenge them in court, which is why I'm here. But I was also told, and I am quoting directly, that fraud is common and the city must protect revenue. They said protecting city revenue justified ticketing a blind woman for violations she did not commit. Yes, Your Honor. Judge Caprio turns his attention to the prosecutor. Counselor, has the city reviewed Miss Parker's case before today? The prosecutor shifts uneasily. Your Honor, I received this file only this morning, but based on an initial review, none of these citations should have been assigned to Ms. Parker personally. They should have been directed to the vehicle operators, if they were valid at all. Your Honor, rideshare drivers are legally permitted short stops for passenger pickup and drop-off under city ordinance. Most of these stops appear to have lasted less than 1 minute. There may not have been any violations. Judge Caprio's expression grows more serious. So, Ms. Parker received 6 citations for possible non-violations from officers who did not believe her disability was legitimate, and the city's response was to direct her to fight the tickets in court, instead of reviewing the officer's conduct. The prosecutor has no rebuttal. That appears correct, Your Honor. Emily speaks again. Your Honor, may I add something? After submitting my initial complaint, I researched further. I contacted the National Federation of the Blind to see if others had been through something similar. Within 2 days, I received responses from 47 blind individuals in Providence alone who were ticketed while using rideshare services. Your Honor, this is not a single situation. It is a recurring issue. The courtroom reacts quietly. This is more than 6 citations. Judge Caprio asks the clear next question. Ms. Parker, why would citywide policy reform ordered parking enforcement officers often assume blind passengers are not telling the truth? Emily explains this in a clear and meaningful way. They don't recognize us because we don't match their idea of what blindness should look like. They expect complete dependence. They expect someone who needs to be guided everywhere. So when they see someone like me using modern tools, moving around independently and communicating without difficulty, their minds assume something is off. Instead of adjusting their understanding of what blind individuals are capable of, they decide we must be pretending. She continues, Your Honor, I use a smartphone with a screen reader. I have apps that identify items, read text aloud, and describe surroundings using AI. Leo is trained to assist me in complex situations. I can work, shop, travel, and live my life without constant help. Yet to some people, functioning independently means I can't possibly be blind, because in their view, blindness equals inability. And when reality challenges that assumption, they choose their stereotype instead. A woman from the courtroom audience raises her hand. Judge Caprio acknowledges her. Yes, ma'am. She stands, holding a white cane. My name is Dorothy Chen. I'm 72, and I have been blind since birth. What this young woman is describing is something I have dealt with throughout my life. When I enrolled in college in 1970, administrators tried to deny me a place because they believed a blind student couldn't manage the coursework. Elderly blind woman testifies when I began my first job. Some co-workers accused me of pretending because I was able to type and use a phone. My independence has often been questioned instead of respected. She turns her face toward Emily, though she cannot see her. This young woman represents a generation that will not accept limitations others try to place on them, and she is being penalized for that. That isn't just unfair, Your Honor. It is harmful. A quiet, respectful applause moves through the courtroom. Judge Caprio nods sincerely. Ma'am, thank you for sharing your experience. Don't forget to subscribe to Judge Stories for moments where bias is challenged and justice leads to real change. Judge Caprio pauses, then speaks with firm clarity. Ms. Parker, I will be issuing several rulings today. First, all 6 citations are dismissed immediately. They should not have been issued in the first place. Emily nods softly. Thank you, Your Honor. But there is an additional matter. Emily and Leo change everything. Ms. Parker, you mentioned 47 other blind individuals in Providence who have dealt with similar problems. I am directing the city to conduct a full review of all parking citations issued to individuals with verified visual impairments from the past 5 years. The prosecutor rises. Your Honor, that may involve hundreds of cases. Then hundreds will be reviewed. Any citation issued directly to a blind passenger instead of the person operating the vehicle will be dismissed and refunded. Is that understood? Yes, Your Honor. Judge Caprio continues. Additionally, I am requiring mandatory disability awareness training for all parking enforcement officers in Providence. Not optional, mandatory within 90 days. Your Honor, the cost is insignificant compared to the impact of ongoing discrimination against disabled residents. This training will address visual impairments, mobility limitations, invisible disabilities, and the use of assistive technology. Officers will learn the purpose of guide dogs, understand what white canes represent, and recognize that independence among disabled individuals is normal, not unusual. Judge Caprio's tone becomes firmer. Furthermore, I am directing the city to establish a clear procedure for rideshare drop-offs for disabled passengers. Drivers must be allowed reasonable time to safely assist passengers using mobility devices without the risk of receiving a citation. This policy will be communicated to Uber and Lyft, as well as to parking enforcement personnel. He turns toward Emily. Ms. Parker, you mentioned using adaptive technology in your graphic design work. Could you explain some of that for the court? Emily appears slightly taken aback by the question, but responds. Of course, Your Honor. I use screen reader software that converts visual details into audio. I also have a refreshable Braille display that provides text in Braille. For design tasks, I use programs that give audio descriptions of colors, shapes, and layouts. I am able to produce advanced designs that are indistinguishable from the work of sighted designers. And Leo, what is his role for you? Emily gently places her hand on her guide dog. Leo is trained to identify and avoid obstacles, stop at curbs and steps, recognize hazards, and guide me through complex environments. He has been with me for 3 years. He is not simply an assistant, he is essential to my independence. Judge Caprio addresses the courtroom. Ladies and gentlemen, what we've seen today shows that our assumptions about disability are not only outdated, but also harmful. Ms. Parker is a skilled graphic designer who lives independently, moves through her city with confidence, and contributes meaningfully to her community. She deserves recognition for that, not penalties based on misunderstanding. He turns back to Emily. Ms. Parker, I want to apologize on behalf of this city and this court for what you've gone through. You were treated unfairly by officials who should have known better. That stops today, thank you, Your Honor. But if I may, this situation is bigger than just me. Those 47 others and many more who never reported their experiences also deserve fairness. They will receive it. I am assigning a special magistrate to review past cases and implement new procedures. Every citation will be reviewed. Every individual who is wrongly charged will be notified and refunded. And any officers who repeatedly cited blind passengers will undergo retraining or face appropriate consequences. As Emily prepares to leave, Judge Caprio makes a final point as Parker. Before you go, I want you to understand something clearly. What happened today was not only about incorrect tickets. It was about dignity. Emily pauses. Leo sits quietly beside her. You have the right to live independently, to use assistive technology to work, to travel confidently throughout your city, and to reject others' limited assumptions about what blind individuals can do. When officials challenged that independence, they also challenged your dignity. I understand, Your Honor. I hope you do, because I would like to ask something of you. Will you help the city in creating the Disability Awareness Training Program? Your insight and lived experience are exactly what officers need to learn from. Emily reflects. Your Honor, I would be honored, but only if Dorothy Chen and representatives from disability advocacy organizations are also included. Judge Caprio smiles, agreed. This will be a thorough program shaped by those who truly understand disability, not by those who only believe they do. Dorothy Chen stands once again. Your Honor, the National Federation of the Blind would be pleased to participate. Several people in the gallery identify themselves as members of disability advocacy organizations, offering assistance. Judge Caprio appears genuinely moved. Then let's handle this properly. Ms. Parker, you came here today to challenge 6 parking citations. You're leaving as someone who helped initiate meaningful change that will support thousands of disabled residents. Thank you, Your Honor, but I couldn't have done this without Leo. She gently places her hand on her guide dog. He's the real support here. Judge Caprio directs his attention to the dog, causing the room to smile. Leo, you're a very good dog, and you take excellent care of your person. Leo's tail wags, sensing the appreciation. As Emily and Leo exit the courtroom, the entire gallery stands and applauds. The applause is not only for her, but for every disabled person who has worked hard for independence and has been misunderstood or penalized for it. Judge Caprio watches them leave before speaking one final time. Ladies and gentlemen, disability rights are human rights. Independence for disabled individuals should not be viewed with suspicion. It deserves recognition and support. And any system that penalizes ability rather than acknowledging it must be corrected. Today, Providence took a step forward, but this is only the beginning. Where are you watching from? Comment your city if you agree that disabled individuals deserve respect in their independence. 6 months later, Providence introduced one of the most comprehensive disability awareness programs for city employees nationwide. Over 200 parking citations issued to disabled individuals were reviewed and dismissed. Emily Parker established a nonprofit that assists cities across the country in developing disability rights training. And Leah was named an honorary citizen of Providence, the first service dog to receive such recognition, because not all heroes wear capes. Some wear service dog vests. Subscribe to Judge Stories for more moments where individual courage leads to community change, and where justice means more than dismissing fines. It means challenging unfair systems. Emily Parker entered the courtroom facing 6 improper citations. She left having influenced an entire city's understanding of what blind individuals are capable of. Judge Frank Caprio once again demonstrated that real justice goes beyond individual rulings. It requires acknowledging broader issues and having the determination to address them. This is what happens when independence challenges assumptions, when bias harms real people, and when one judge decides that enough is enough.